Guys, George here, and I'm in San Francisco and really excited. There have been so many amazing people that I've been able to run into while being in the States, but I've managed to meet Carson. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Carson Demers. I am a physical therapist. I'm a knitter, spinner, designer, and the author of a book called Knitting Comfortably, The Ergonomics of Hand Knitting.
Well, see, this is how you came to be on my radar, was because I was looking at the not Instanets, what's the name of the Imaginet's Instagram feed, and your book came up, and I was sort of thinking I had a number of projects that I really wanted to get out before I came to America, right? So I set absolutely stupid timelines and said this has to be done, and I would work 5 or 6 hours straight just to knit this stuff out. And before I went on to Continental, I was a thrower, and I was getting pain down. Well, this finger was going numb, right? And apparently that's a bad thing, right?
Yeah, that's a bad thing. Numb fingers aren't.
That's not
what you're looking for when you're knitting. Yeah.
Okay, but you have got this amazing book that explains so much about the physicality and the practicality of knitting.
Well, thank you.
How did this born?
Well, it started because about 18 or 19 years ago, I actually had really bad injuries. Not from knitting, but from poor computer ergonomics. Because 20 years ago, it was a different world with computers. We weren't using them as much, and we didn't have the knowledge that we have now. And it was severe enough that I couldn't practice PT.
Oh my gosh.
So when I finally got back to the clinic, I started seeing a lot of people coming in with the same injuries, and they were knitters who did, much like you, would knit hours and hours a day to get a project done, and would end up with a tendonitis or some sort of a neural compression problem or a sore neck, whatever it might be. And so, these injuries, just from firsthand experience, they're easier to prevent than they are to treat, as well now.
Yeah.
And so I started teaching, and I've been teaching for about 10 years now. And the book started about, I guess at this point I started the book 10 years ago, and it's been out for a bit over a year now. Yeah, so that's where it came from.
So who would have thought that doing a small micro repetitive movement could possibly cause injury?
That's the tricky bit, isn't it? Yeah, we tend to, most people don't know that a muscle contraction is a muscle contraction, and it doesn't matter if it's intentional or functional or even purposeful. Even stress-induced contractions are still muscle contractions. And from the perspective of a muscle, that means the muscle is working, and when a muscle is working, it's breaking down tissue. So we tend to think that because knitting is our happy place and it's something we like to do and it's not physically exhausting to do, that no harm can come of it. Yes. Yeah.
What sort of issues do you see commonly amongst the knitting community?
There are some that are pretty universal, independent of knitting technique, and then there are some that are more technique dependent. So sort of the universal ones, I saw a lot of people with shoulder problems who knit on the sofa this, like I'm sitting now, or leaning in a chair against an arm, and that pushes the humeral head up into the subacromial space. And as you're moving your arm, you're sort of grinding away on your poor little rotator cuff. Or arm resting on an armrest puts pressure on ulnar nerve and finger flexors, both of which need to be dynamic during knitting. So those are pretty universal problems. In terms of overuse kinds of things, underuse kind of issues that are really kind of a risk for all knitters are just general deconditioning, loss of range of motion. It's not a terribly cardiovascular activity.
It can be when you're getting angry.
When you're getting stressed out, yeah. I always tell my class I've never seen a knitter break a sweat unless it's a drop stitch.
It is true.
And then, there are some types of injuries that I think are more common depending on technique, style of knitting. So there's there's a tensioning strategy that I'll call suboptimal tensioning strategy among continental knitters that relies on finger extension. So the index finger is usually extended, and there's sometimes some wrist extension, and that requires active contractions of the wrist and finger extensors up here, which start up here in your elbow.
Yep.
So this tendonitis is a really common problem. If it's coupled with wrist extension, carpal tunnel can be an issue. Among English style knitters, probably the two more common injuries are de Quervain's from a tensioning strategy that uses a pinch to hold the yarn and to throw it, as opposed to weaving it through your fingers and just kind of tossing it.
Yep.
And sometimes you'll see people who knit English have just sort of an unusual grip on the needle, and that can stir up some medial elbow kinds of problems.
And even like you covered such a wide area in your book, from positioning to posture to neck position, and I think San Francisco must be the land of the iPhone neck, where everybody's kind of positioned like that. But even things like lighting and the choice of color of your needles, the shape of your needles, I didn't realize there was like so much to...
Yeah, you know, I really love knitting history, and I love to look at the evolution of our tools, and the evolution of knitting tools has been all about trying to make us more efficient and comfortable knitters. So everything from moving from a straight needle to a circular needle to interchangeables, and now we have different tip lengths and length of taper and sharpness of point. All that kind of stuff is tool evolution. Yeah, and you know, I think that we as knitters and consumers of these products, we need to pay attention, because when we only buy one kind of needle, we're setting ourselves up for some problems, because it may not be right for all the projects you want to do or for the different yarns that you want to use. So in other words, just grabbing a size 6 because the pattern says size 6 may not be the right needle for that yarn or the stitch pattern in that piece.
So you're dare I say it, you're a swatcher?
I'm a swatcher. I am a swatcher.
But there's more to swatching than just looking at the tension, from what I'm gathering.
Oh my gosh, there's so much you can do with swatching. I always talk about swatching as being a knitter's playground, you know, and I like to sort of relate it to a performer or an athlete or a first responder who would practice and rehearse and train before they jumped onto the stage or into the arena. But knitters will often just sit down with these complex patterns that they've never knitted before and hop into a project. Does that sound like something?
Nobody in mind.
No offense intended, but it comes with a good deal of risk. You know, and it's stressful, isn't it? I mean, to sit down with $300 worth of yarn and you want it to look good, and it's a little stressful, and that's why we're afraid to drop stitches and make mistakes, and that encourages tight postures, and that, you know, it's all very, very, very connected.
And you mentioned, like, I always, like, people are generally wooden for a little bit of friction, or like high shiny metal for nice slippery fast stitches, and then to think, I never thought about matching the yarn to the friction of a needle, or the color of a needle, or the background,
and that's part of what I meant by, you know, we need to be mindful of our purchases, because we cast votes every time you make a sale, right? You make a purchase, you're saying, I want slippery needles, or I want slippery yarns, or whatever, and so we have lots of them on the market, but it comes sometimes at a cost of needles that are a little bit grippier and maybe don't have as much shine to them, or they're not as sparkly, or whatever it might be. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So being mindful of having a variety of needles to reduce risk from the variety of yarns that hopefully you're using. And swatching is the place that you go to figure all that stuff out.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So, as with all things in medicine, really, that prevention is way better than cure, right? And for, like, this blog is really for guys that are, getting into knitting, or perhaps people who are a little bit more adventurous in knitting and just, I don't know, like listening to me yabber on. Thank you for subscribing. There's a button down there. how can we, as a group of people, look after each other? Is there strategies that you would recommend to prevent having problems down the line?
Oh my gosh, I have a book full of strategies.
You do?
I do.
I do. And we don't have 20 hours.
I have a book full of strategies. So, I guess the simplest thing that I would say is you don't have to sit down to knit. You can stand and knit, and knitting was developed to be a mobile way to create textiles. So these days we tend to like to park in front of the TV or what have you and knit or watch your blog while we're knitting, which you're doing right now, right?
I hope so.
I hope you are. But what you'll do is you'll stand up and take a stretch break, or you'll stand up and discover that you can knit while you're standing and the stitches work exactly the same way. And much of the problems that I've seen clinically not just due to tensioning or techniques within knitting, but just the bloody chair. We sit in furniture that's designed to be lounge furniture and expected to support us in working. And it would be the same thing as trying to run a marathon in shoes that are not intended to be run in, right? So we do these marathon knittings in this lounge furniture that puts us in these
really bad,
kind of bad. No, they're not bad. They're not supportive of work. So you've got to fight gravity continually, and again, that fighting gravity means muscle contractions. So it's just much more effortful, and again, the whole inactivity that can be associated with knitting. When you're sitting down for those long periods of time, heart rate goes down, respiratory rate goes down. That means less circulation to working muscle in your hands, less circulation to your brain. And that translates to, if nothing more, if this is the only thing that will compel you, more mistakes in your knitting as the evening wears on, right?
Absolutely, and I'm learning now that if I start getting frustrated or frazzled, then it's like, okay, I have to put all this down and take a break and get up and move and
So you can do that really organically with your knitting, and in the book I talk about using movement markers, and this is a really easy strategy. So depending on how large the circumference of the piece is or how long the rows are, you can put a marker on it, on the needle, that just means when I come to this, I'm going to do a stretch, or I'm going to stand for the next row. You can look at the stitch repeats, the lines in your charts, and figure out from that where are the good opportunities to do a stretch, or where are the good opportunities to practice not looking down at my hands, but to look forward while I'm making just plain knits or just plain purl stitches.
So I'm a open carry knitter, so I'm happy to knit in public, and not everybody is, but I'm just trying to think of yarn management. Would you have like a bag over the shoulder that you're pulling the yarn from, or would you like a wrist bag? Or
well, it depends on the size of the project that you're working on, obviously.
True.
There's a risk factor in ergonomics known as contact stress, which is the a ratio of force over area when your body comes in contact with something. And so for that reason, I don't like things that are hanging on your wrist, because they tend to be very small areas. And not that the force is tremendously great, but it's very constant. So I prefer bags that if I'm going to knit in public, which I do all the time, I could either put over my whole body, like a single shoulder strap bag, or a backpack type of thing, or a waist pack, depending on what it is. This morning, actually, I was knitting in a cafe and I had it's just a small project, and actually that little bag over there in the chair, which I just put on the arm of the chair and just knitted off of that. And it's light enough to carry it, so really no issues with that. But so lots of different things, and bags are another one of those. I tend to make people shop. I tend to encourage people to shop. I don't make them, but
I'm cool with that.
Yeah, right. So go buy lots of needles and go buy lots of bags. Your bag is like your portable studio, and it's important to think about keeping it light and keeping it only the things that you need to have in the bag for the time you're going to be away from your home. Knitting.
So you don't need the 50 spare skeins of yarn.
No. I used to have my students dump their knitting bags out in class just to see what's in there.
Oh my god.
Oh my goodness, you would find bottles and bottles and bottles of water, and
that would be so heavy.
It's very heavy. Children's toys and just all kinds of things that have kind of accumulated in the bottom of the bag.
So you've really got the yarn you're working with, your needles,
your pattern if you're working off of a pattern, and that's pretty much all you need.
Yeah.
You know, maybe a rescue crochet hook or something like that. That's about all you need.
Oh my god, that carrying the rest, that made a big difference for me. It was just like,
yeah.
I'm not afraid to drop stitches as much anymore.
Good.
I don't know who it was that, I think it was Bruce Weinstein who says, now I want you to drop some stitches. And
good.
I was like,
such a good thing to do.
I haven't cut a stick yet, but I believe that's the next frontier.
You will. It's so satisfying.
Everybody says it's satisfying.
Oh my gosh, it's so satisfying. It's delightful. It's like, you will feel like such a grown-up, really.
Oh my god, I'm not ready for those big boy pants yet.
You are. You're so ready. You're so ready. But you know, one of the things that I talk about doing in my book is swatching. Let's say that you're going to make maybe this, although you can't get this pattern, but you could copy it.
Oh, I'll photograph it. Don't worry.
And let's say the scariest part maybe for a knitter is where all these kind of cables are running. And I would say in the swatch to drop that stitch and let it run down so that you can figure out how to pick it back up in the swatch.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if it happens in the project, you don't want to be terrified of that, and you don't want to have to rip it all out.
Yeah.
You need to know how to fix it.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that swatches are really good for, is just to practice those techniques.
Yeah. And I always say to people, you know, an exam is a really bad time to do something for the very first time.
Absolutely.
So consider a swatch, you know, your class, your practice.
It's your practice. They're great little environments. Now, I will also say this, because I tell this to all my students, nobody likes a bully in the playground. So when you're doing a swatch, you have to be nice to yourself.
Okay.
Because if you make critical comments to yourself, or, oh, I'll never figure this out, or I'm so dumb, I don't know how to pick up this drop stitch or whatever, you're not going to ever want to go back to that swatching environment, right? So it needs to really be filled with self-nurturing and kindness, right? That makes it more fun to go play.
And you don't want to knit a whole bunch of anger into a piece, right?
Right.
Because it's like, and you look at it and you'd go, I hated doing that one little section of it.
Yeah.
Whereas I see the joy in a fabric and go, okay, well, that was really cool, and that section was fun. It was crazy hard, but I'm really glad I got it. So.
I love hearing that from you. That's awesome.
I think. Because it's a thing. It's an alive thing. Right?
It's an environment, right? We make environments for people to wear, and it's very personal and it's very intimate. And I'm sure that all of your knitting listeners can appreciate this. If you're knitting something for someone, you think about them the whole time you're knitting it. Like, you put a lot of energy, not just physical, but sort of emotional and psychic energy into that piece. So taking that sort of back into the world of comfort and safety of knitting, as we approach the holiday season.
It's just around the corner.
It's just around the corner, and I just taught at Vogue Live last weekend, and there are a lot of people, I know you're out there, who are just starting their holiday knitting. And they're going to, I already know this, they're going to sit down and they're going to knit frantically for 5 or 6 hours a night, and then come January they're going to be in trouble, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with telling somebody, you're going to get this, but it's going to be after the holiday. Here's a piece of the yarn. This is what the pattern looks like. Because you're creating an environment for them to wear, and how would you feel if the environment that somebody gave you is filled with an injury? That doesn't feel good to wear, right?
Yeah.
So,
And like one side's all wonky, and the other side is like...
Exactly.
So, out of one of the more interesting things I had not even thought about this was, like, we come from a traditional round needle world, and in Australia I have never seen anything other than round needles. But you talk about the shape of the needle, because you're holding that, right? So that's going to make a big difference.
Absolutely.
So you've for some people you've advocated using a square needle. Yeah,
or anything that's not round. So I don't know if you were knitting 20 years ago or so, but there was a time when lots of different shapes were out there, and we sort of narrowed it down now to, that I'm aware of, to 3, which is the cylindrical, the sort of classic knitting needle, the square needle, and there's a maker in the States that does a hexangular needle.
Oh wow.
And the benefit of the non-cylindrical needle is that it gives you a flat surface to push against. So going back to that idea of contact stress, which is again force over area, you have a uniform flat area, so you have a greater point of contact. Because of the arc of the cylinder, the force is unevenly distributed on your fingertip, and so it requires more flexion at this part of your finger. As we age, some hands get a little stiff in there, and we tend to get a little less padding on our fingertips, and so that can be quite painful. I've known many knitters who've had to stop using large needles as they've gotten older, but you put a square needle in their hand and it's a whole different story, because it's just not as hard to hold. And what you'll sometimes, knitters will say, oh, the square needles feel so weird in my hand, and often it's because they're holding it wrong. They've got the diagonal pointy bit, the corner in their finger, and that's about as bad as it gets. So.
And the other advantage that I had not even thought of is that if you're manipulating the fabric or whatever, and you're holding the two needles together, that's more likely to stick, and you're going to need less pressure to hold those two needles together. If it's surface against surface.
Absolutely right.
And that's
I know, right? So I've used that with people who have tremor, and knitters who have a little tremor in their hands. And the thing about intention tremor is when you're nervous, it gets worse. So if you don't have to worry as much about holding things together, you can be a bit more relaxed and a little bit more stable. They're wonderful, wonderful things. We're really lucky to have all these options.
I suppose if you had intention tremor, you could always do unintentional lace as well. It's like, that's pretty, isn't it? It's very unusual. It's like, yes, it is. Can I see the pattern? No, you can't.
No, you can't. You're looking at it.
Exactly. It's like, ta-da. The other thing, now this is an interesting area because as far as I'm aware, it's not easy to get this in Australia, and it's not even easy to get this in the States, is the knitting belt. So we've got the Hazel Tyndall, because a lot of people think Shetland and speed are the two things that I'm hearing about the belt, but I suspect that there's more to it than that.
So anytime humans develop a tool system, they work by stabilizing one element and mobilizing something else on it. So holding the nail and swinging the hammer, holding the bread and moving the bread knife. In knitting, traditional British knitting stabilized what I would call the receiving needle, typically the right needle, but doesn't have to be, with a stick or a sheath or eventually a belt. And the nice thing about that is you have a free hand. So you don't have to worry about the grip. You don't have to worry about holding onto the needle. And because it's a long lever and it's in that pouch, and the point of contact is sort of along your hand here, you get a bit of a springing action. So the movement is the left needle kind of shuttling over, and if you watch Hazel, she's lightning fast. I mean, she's really amazing. You should check out her videos. But there's just a tiniest bit of spring action that can help you to get stitches off. So you're putting energy in and taking the energy back. And that makes efficient knitting, and that's what we want to be doing. Even when you're not using a belt, you want to be, whatever energy you put in there, you want to be able to get as much of it back as you can without putting more in. Just, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
So who would you recommend trialing the belt for?
Do you mean who might benefit from it? Oh, I think everybody should try a belt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I've placed my order. I'm looking forward to giving it a go.
Yeah, you can. I mean, I'm sure that I can't imagine they're not available in Australia. They're not available?
Not easily.
Really?
There was a couple of leather makers that said they were making them, but then you see zero. So the closest I've seen to that style of, very different would be Portuguese knitting with the pin, the thumbs and the pins and stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty different. It's pretty different,
but
it's a lovely technique. It's great to know Portuguese knitting. You should know many styles of knitting.
Well, if it involves a brooch, then of course it's going to be good. It's going to be lovely.
It is.
If it has accessories, it's got to be good, right?
Right. So knitting belts. You are, right? Knitting belts.
And they're leather, so that suits me.
It suits you beautifully. And you can look at the archaic pieces that are done in silver, and there's just some beautiful, like the knitting sticks of the Dales. Oh, gorgeous things.
Wow. It's a whole new world of craziness. Wow. There's so much to this, right? And I would highly, highly recommend that you consider this book, right? Because it's... may I grab a copy?
There's one right there. Ooh. Conveniently enough.
Here's one that we prepared earlier, right? Now, this is a heavy ergonomically...
It's a hefty tome.
It's a big book, right? And there's a lot to it, but I really, really recommend it because I did a speed flick. I'm sorry. I haven't read it word for word yet, but the sections were amazing.
In my book, it's so unseemly.
Oh my gosh.
There we go.
But it covers pretty much from head to, even to toe.
It does.
Head to toe, how to knit in a way that's not gonna, that you will be knitting for a long time.
And not just knitting, blocking. There's a section on blocking. There's exercises for prevention and how to modify chairs and other parts of your environment if you like to knit in public.
Wow. And you even do, you talk about use of computers.
I do.
As well.
I do. Yeah, because we have to talk about that as knitters today.
I think a lot of people are going to be carrying their, their pattern maybe on their iPhone or and revolutionary things like lighting, having the right light. That's so important. I don't know if you can see here, but there's this fantastic, what color light is that? Is it a neutral?
That's a full spectrum light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's just pure,
all of it. Yeah, because that.
And you can see it's rather beaten up. The neck of it's kind of disaster.
Wow.
It's about time for a new one.
There you go. Shopping.
I get to
accessories.
Go shopping again.
Shopping for accessories. But I think a lot of, I sometimes I'll be knitting away and I'm like, why am I frustrated? It's because I can't see. And then I'll, one, put my glasses on, and two, turn a decent light on. And then suddenly it's like, it's one less stress.
It's amazing. And when you can't see, something else happens. You like to pull your knitting up so you can see it. And when you do this, it does all kinds of risky things to your forearms and to your elbows. So lighting is really important. We take it far too for granted.
And it's those little simple changes. And I think if you just add a couple of simple changes, like perhaps having a cushion or a pillow that you can rest your arms on when you need to position so it's better in your visual field. I think that would be good, because for me, I've got a really tight neck, so anything that stops me from bending over like that would be good.
Right.
It just made me conscious. It made me conscious. And I think that's important, that we should be conscious of the stuff that we're doing.
And you mentioned computers, and I think that's a really important reason why we need to be conscious of it. We spend so much of our days, in the 21st century, seated with shoulder flexion, elbow flexion, wrist extension, and fingers flexing or flexed.
Yeah.
Whether it's driving or keyboarding or tablet touching or whatever it might be. And knitting is the same. It's the exact same group of muscles. And the tricky bit is that all of that is submaximal. It's not like going to the gym and having a really hard workout and being exhausted afterwards. Knitting is fun. We don't think that this is work, but your body knows it is work.
Yeah. After a marathon session, it's funny. You would think that it's the hands that would feel it, but for me it's the neck.
Sure.
So I automatically know, okay, well, I'm in a bad posture. And I think it's easy to, if you're on a bus or something like that, you'll just go, oh, well, I'll just sit like this for a little bit to...
The airplane?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. So, curious question, but I ask everybody this. What's your funniest knitting in public moment?
My funniest knitting in public moment?
Because usually you get that stupid, what are you knitting? Well, it's long and thin. It's probably a scarf.
Well, I don't know that it's very funny, but it's kind of common, which is people will watch me knit and they'll go, oh, my grandmother used to crochet like that. Or, oh, you're a weaver.
Yes, there's my loom.
Yeah.
I suppose we are kind of weaving a fabric, but it's a very long-winded way of weaving.
It's a very long-winded way to do it. And the whole point is to not have a loom. Right, so you can walk behind the cattle and you can plow your field and walk to the village and make a sock.
Imagine that. It's like, where did you make this? Oh, well, somewhere between Yorkshire and Staffordshire.
Isn't that fabulous?
That's kind of...
It's so great.
Travel knitting.
It's so great.
I've got a shawl, actually, that I knitted throughout Japan. So that's my Japan shawl. So
you knit memories into it.
Of course.
Yeah, of course you do.
Yeah.
You know, something that did happen that now that I think of it was kind of funny, but it wasn't at the time.
Uh-oh.
I was knitting on a plane, and I was sitting on the aisle, and I dropped the ball, which was wound as a ball. I don't often do that, but it was wound as a ball, and it rolled. We were having turbulence, and it rolled all the way to the end of the plane. Oh my God!
And then people are going, oh, and they're trying to pass it to you.
Oh well, you know, I didn't want it to get stepped on or rolled over by the trolley, right? That's what I was worried about.
Yeah. And those trolleys are really clean.
Yeah, exactly, and they're very lightweight.
Oh yeah.
No harm to my cashmere at all, right?
Oh my God, not the cashmere! Like no. Yes, exactly. For planes, I tend to put everything into a bag in the hope that it's not going to go zinging down the aisle. But hey, I haven't had enough lumpy landings yet, so
it happens. I do keep it in a bag, but it just hopped out somehow.
They have a mind of their own.
Sometimes they do. You know how balls are.
It's true. It's true. You should keep them under control, people. One thing that you've advocated is that, you know, we should get up and we should move and stretch a little. Do you have a couple of recommended stretches that knitters should consider?
Sure. So I tend to have this is what I tell my knitters. Much like if you went to, say, a Chinese restaurant where you'd have column A food and column B, like you're doing the family meal.
Okay.
You pick 3 dishes from column A and 2 dishes from column B, and it's $30.
Yep.
Right?
Okay.
I have my column A movements and stretches that I can do while I'm still sitting, and my column B movements that require me to get off the chair or wherever it is I'm parked.
Okay.
So column A stuff is really easy, and they tend to be for the forearms and the hands. And so I'll show you one because it's just. I hope that you'll remember who the girl band that did this.
Oh yes.
Do you know who it is?
No. It's the Spice Girls, right?
No. Oh
Stop
God.
Right now. No.
We are from a different generation. You and I. Stop in the Name of Love.
Oh,
for heaven's sake.
the Supremes.
The Supremes. Oh my gosh.
Well, I forgot. I'm in America. I'm not in Britain.
Wow.
So. Okay, so
we're going to stop in the name of love, or we're going to stop in the name of yarn.
Yes.
And we're going to hold our fingers here.
Yep.
And then just gently bring them back, and you don't need to pull. It's just to get some resistance to get the contraction sort of elongated here, to uncontract, if you will.
Now, should you be feeling it here or in the...
Well, you should feel it along here, but you're going to feel it wherever you're tightest. So the straighter your elbow can be, the more you'll benefit from this.
Okay.
But you don't want it to be painful or uncomfortable. It should just feel very... It should feel friendly, is the word I like. Okay. And then the song, which you clearly don't know.
Stop in the name of love.
There you go.
Before you break my heart. Yeah. So we've done the movements.
Okay.
Sure.
So then, Diana says we're going to think it over, but we're going to flip it over. So I'm going to turn my hand over so that I can stretch it this way. And doesn't that feel nice?
Yes.
Yeah. And then you can go this way with the other hand.
Yep.
Because you want to be balanced in life. You do like balance and then flip it over.
Wow. Okay.
That feels kind of nice, right?
Yeah.
Even just sitting here.
Yeah.
So you've just done column A. You've done a column A stretch. The other column A stretch that's really easy to do is pretend you're a zombie.
Yep.
With little soft fists, and then drop them down.
Yep.
And then turn them out.
Ooh. So that's the thumb tendons and stuff.
So you're getting all of this. You're getting all of the extensors stretched out.
Yeah. Cool.
And if you do that standing, you can add, you can turn it into a chest stretch by pulling your hands behind you.
Okay.
So your hands would go behind you, and you kind of like try to get your
shoulder blades kind of back.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's our column A's.
Those are column A's.
What would be in a column B?
Column B would be something like, I have been sitting for half an hour, it's time to get up and stretch. So I still want to knit, but I'll stand up and maybe I'll march in place for the length of a commercial on TV or something like that, or go make a cup of tea or something.
I think hydration's important too. People forget to eat, they forget to drink. I think it's important. You've got to nutrition.
You've got to nourish yourself.
Nourish, that's the word I was looking for.
Doctor, yes. You've got to nourish yourself. And you know what knitters like to do? They like to drink wine, don't they? In California, we like to drink wine while we're knitting.
Does the Napa Valley make yarn as well?
Yeah, there's sheep up there.
There you go.
There's sheep up there. There's a nice yarn store up there. A couple of them.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Next holiday.
Next time. But yes, you're right. Drinking water, and the extra benefit of that is it gives you a reason for a column B stretch, which is to get up and use the bathroom, right? Well,
that's the other thing as well. It will encourage you to move.
It will.
And it was interesting that I don't think many people have thought about a DVT, like the risk of deep vein thrombosis. It's not just in planes and long car rides.
No, it's not. I very sadly had a couple of knitters, but this one in particular, who not only had a DVT, but it moved into her lungs, so she had a pulmonary embolism.
Oh my God.
And she's a person who she lived very far north. And so long days in the wintertime, right, or long nights in the wintertime. And yeah, she spent those hours knitting and got a blood clot and was very lucky to be alive from it.
Yeah.
They're not. Knitting is an extreme sport.
It can be. It's just like. I'm thinking, I'm going to get this flux of people coming in for medical clearance for knitting.
There you go.
Can you clear me? Can you please clear me for this beautiful brioche scarf? And I'm like, you are cleared.
There you go. Make them read the book first. Make them buy the book first.
Absolutely. So if somebody was to consider buying a book that's about, as far as I'm aware, this is the only book on the ergonomics of knitting in the world. Is that correct?
That is my understanding. I have not found, certainly not to the level of
detail
as that book is.
That you've gone into.
Yeah.
How would one find a copy of this book?
I suppose it depended on where one is.
Okay. Well,
so you can get them from my website. Is it okay to say that?
Please tell us all about your website.
My website is ergoiknit.com. ergoiknit.com. I sell the books there, but if you're not in the United States, I have to confess I'm really not good with computer stuff. It's just not my skill set.
That's okay.
So I don't have it set up for international sales, but you can email me that you're interested in purchasing it, and then I will email you a shipping quote.
Yeah.
And if you want to do that, we can do it that way. I'm desperately trying to get the book distributed in Australia and New Zealand and the UK and Europe. And fingers crossed, I think there's some on their way to a couple of those places very soon.
That's cool. And let's put this in a context, right? Because a lot of people will think, well, if I'm going to pay $50 for a book and say $50 for shipping to Australia. By the way, I can give you a heads up that Skein Sisters in Sydney, within a week, will have 3 copies of this book. So if you're in Sydney and interested in this book, have a talk with Deb at Skein Sisters, and she will be able to hopefully assist you. But so $50 for the book, say $50 for shipping to Australia. A lot of people will go, oh my God, that's so expensive. And if you injure yourself, that's going to be expensive.
Yes, it is. And how many times have you spent $50 on a skein of yarn?
Oh my God, this holiday has just been ludicrous. I've got a suitcase of yarn now, so there's a lot of projects I need to get done, which is, if I get that belt thing, then I'm gonna out Hazel Tyndall.
I want to see that. I want to see that.
It's
I haven't
gonna be
met
interesting.
her yet, but I'm hoping to meet her next year, and I'm going to let her know.
Oh my God!
That all the way around the world, there's a guy who wants to out Hazel her.
Oh my God! Yeah. It'll be knit stitch, and it'll be one color only.
There you go. She started somewhere.
She did, but she's in Shetland, and I think they actually come out of the womb knitting.
They do.
That in Iceland, I understand.
Yeah, they're brilliant knitters. Well, all of like Northern Europe, Scandinavia, the Norwegians. Oh my gosh, the Swedes. Amazing.
I watched a video of Deb at Skein Sisters. Actually, she ran a continental class, and she put this video up on Instagram of her knitting fast, and I actually downloaded the video and slowed it down just so I could see what her hands and her fingers and all sorts of stuff were doing, and even then I couldn't work it out.
So in my classes we do a lot of knitting analysis in my classes, and depending on someone we will analyze the individual, but I have a lot of videos of hands knitting, and it's really what you need to do. I mean, when a proficient knitter looks at somebody knitting, we probably will say, oh, it's a knit stitch, or it's a decrease, or it's a purl, but we have to really break it down into much smaller components to see where are the inefficiencies, where are the wasted energy, the exertion that we could minimize in doing it.
And something as simple as in the left, holding the needle versus holding the fabric, that can make a big difference.
Sure. In
stability or whatever.
Sure. And how you do it, how you hold it, your grip on that.
Yeah, that's incredible. So look, if somebody wants to learn from you, like, how do we find out about your classes and stuff like that?
One of the things that I'm going to do this weekend, and now that I'm saying it like to your listeners, I have to do it, is to update the calendar on my website. But again, I'm not good with computers, so that's like...
You need a nerdy friend.
I do. I need a nerdy friend to do all this.
In another time zone. Just say.
Oh, that...
I know, right?
Are you volunteering for this?
I don't know yet.
Oh my
I don't
gosh,
know.
wow.
The camera's still rolling? Shit, what
yeah,
have I done?
You all heard it, right?
We can see. We can see. I will be doing all these Skype consults. We're going, but now my arm is falling off.
Well, you've got to get something in return.
It's true. Right? I will post my arm to you. You sort it out and then post it back.
And then post it back.
Yeah.
It'll cost you at least $50 in shipping, but...
Yeah, it's not the heaviest of arms, but...
It's got to weigh more than my book.
It probably does.
One of the... I have to say this because I think it's funny, but it was such a great question. My book weighs 2.88 pounds.
Which is just over a kilo for the people in the metric system.
Yes, it's just over a kilo. That's weighty, right?
Yeah,
There's 250 something pages in it, so it's weighty. And one of the first purchasers said, "So I love your book, but how do I hold it without getting hurt?"
Oh,
isn't that a great question? It's like, yes,
straight to the top of the class, shining that apple.
Yes.
And what was your suggestion? It was just like, get your son to hold it.
There you go. Call somebody in Australia. No, I said, don't hold it in your hands. Put it down and put it on a book rest.
Yeah, book rests are good.
Yeah, they're good. That's what they're for.
Absolutely. Yes. Consider it, and class schedule as well. So keep
yes. So I do teach. I teach a lot.
And do you do like a 1 hour class, or do you have a selection of classes?
I have a selection of classes. My classes are anywhere between an hour and 6 hours long. Depends on the class. And I do knitting classes, obviously, and I do spinning classes, ergonomics and technique.
Wow.
If anybody's around next weekend in Northern California, come to Lambtown. I'll be doing a day-long ergonomics at your spinning wheel class, which will be great fun. And then I'm teaching a basic ergonomics for knitters class, kind of the bread and butter class that everybody likes to have there as well. It's funny, I have a class I think this is a great name. It's called Swatch buckling.
Swatch buckling.
Doesn't that just sound kind of like...
I love pirate themes. So
yeah, it's kind of piratey, and it's kind of...
So do you do little pirate flag swatches?
Well, not exactly, but the funny thing about it is that class, even though it has the information that I hear from people who take my other classes, why don't we get you to watch us knitting, or why don't we get whatever? Well, that's the class where it happens, but the class doesn't sell because of the word swatch. Isn't that curious? The word swatch.
How do we make swatches? Making swatches sexy again.
I know.
Yeah. There was a book, I think it was Mad Color, or there's another book that talks about triangular swatches, and then you turn them into bunting, so they're kind of fun.
Oh, well, yeah. Felicity's book.
Yes.
Felicity Ford's book.
Yeah. And I thought, that's a good idea. Like, your swatches don't have to be sad little bottom of the knitting bag, which shouldn't be there because they make the bag heavy.
Thank you. He's read that chapter.
Yeah. People, don't be carrying your water bottles in there. Get your kids to carry them, or be in a cafe and they can just...
There you go. There's
kind of drip you nice caffeinated beverages. Wow, we've talked about a lot of stuff, which is great, but I cannot leave without a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
Favorite fibre?
Oh boy. To knit or to spin?
Oh, both. One of each. Or two of each, or three of each.
Okay. To knit, pretty much anything that's wool that's not superwash.
Mm-hmm. What does superwash do that you don't like?
Makes the yarn slipperier, takes away the cuticle, or seals it, so it's a slipperier environment. And you know, again, I mentioned earlier about casting a vote with every purchase you make. We have voted superwash in. The market has a lot of superwash yarn, and there's nothing wrong with superwash yarn, but the stuff that's not superwash is really special, and it has a completely different ergonomic profile than a superwash yarn. Much easier to ergonomically, much easier to work with.
Do you think people are they're fearful of washing woolen garments?
Yeah, I think, well, I don't know about fearful, but I think that they don't want to take the time. They like to just toss it in the washer.
Yeah.
But I think for a knitter who probably would take the time, I think the big attraction to superwash is the brightness of color, because it takes the dyes better.
Okay.
Yeah, but so we have a slippery yarn, and we've asked the market to provide us with slippery needles. And
so it's going to be
not a very happy combination.
Yeah, that would
ergonomically. Yeah. So, and what do I like to spin? I guess I like to spin wool. I'm a wool guy.
Okay.
I guess I'm a wool guy.
You haven't taken to like Labrador. There's the person that does all of the animal fiber, like the dog fibers and stuff.
See my dog?
Oh,
that's my dog. That's Lily.
Lily.
She's the best dog ever.
Where is Lily?
Lily isn't here today.
Oh, she's off at the Poochie parlor today.
Yeah.
She's getting a back weave and getting a tease done.
Getting back home.
Yeah. She'll come home and she'll be all Latisha finger and talking gossip from there.
Exactly. Yeah, Lily can talk trash with the best of them. She is a good trash talker.
It is San Francisco.
Yeah.
I'm sure those poodles.
Oh yeah, they get around. No, I don't like spinning dog.
Okay. I'm allergic to dogs, so it's really annoying.
And the thing about spinning dog is that when it gets wet, it smells like a wet dog.
Oh, imagine that.
It just does. It always will.
Yeah.
But wool doesn't, and
it doesn't smell like a
wet sheep.
No.
And if it did, I wouldn't mind, because I kind of like the way
cool with that.
I like how sheep smell.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm Aussie. I think I've been to enough sheep farms that. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I like how their wool smells. Let me be more specific. There are other smells from a sheep that aren't nearly as nice. But wool
it's dagging season. Do you talk about dags?
I don't know what that means.
Dag is the little bit of fecal contamination in the wool around the
bridge.
the anus.
Yeah.
So they do. It's actually quite well. I think it's more humane now, but it used to be where they just go and they cut away the skin.
It's quite nasty.
Pleasant.
Yeah.
But now I'm sure that when they, is knitting vegan? I don't know. Send me a response.
Boy, you're in California. That's a can of worms here.
Yeah, I'm just thinking. I haven't seen vegan yarn.
Well, here's how we get around that. We say that we're plant-based.
Oh.
Because a vegan wouldn't use wool. But if you eat a plant-based diet, then you can knit with wool.
If you eat the plant,
if your motivation for being vegan is to not eat animals or their products, and that's pretty much all you care about, you can say that you eat a plant-based diet, and still work with wool.
Okay.
Because the sheep has to get rid of the wool, like they can't.
Well, they get really heavy.
Yeah, they have to be shorn. It's not humane to not shear a sheep.
Yeah, and you just happen to be behind gathering the wool as
nothing wrong with that.
You know, as the star cut got
do you remember that sheep that got lost in, I think it was in Australia? Sean
the sheep.
Did you remember that? He was this beautiful merino, and he'd gotten lost for 2 or 3 years. And when they found him, he had 90 pounds of wool on him.
Oh my God.
The poor thing was barely alive.
Wow. And he would have been heavy as all.
Yes.
He would have had it would have been red with all of that earth, and it would have been interesting yarn.
It would have been interesting. I don't know what happened to the fleece, but I know they sheared him. Yeah.
To be, I will find out.
Please do.
I will do a Google search, and I know a very thorough Google search too.
Exhaustive.
Favorite designers? Are there people who you love, adore, that you think, wow, this person's doing really interesting stuff that, that we should check out on Ravelry?
Oh my gosh, I have a ton of friends who are designers that I love very, very much. My friend Mary Scott Huff, who does spectacular stranded work and color work. Her work is amazing. Romy Hill, her lace work is beautiful. Of course, Nancy Merchant, her brioche. Zandy Peters is a really exciting designer. I was really disappointed I didn't get to meet last weekend at Vogue, but her work is gorgeous. Janine Bages, who has a book called The Joy of Color, she's a good friend of mine, and her Fair Isle work is spectacular.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful designs, beautiful color work, and a tremendous teacher. Really good teacher.
Cool.
Yeah, there are lots of them out there, and it's become so much with Ravelry and just the internet. It's so much easier to spread our designs around, right? And people get to know you.
And I think it's important that we talk to each other, because it's easy to get stuck into one mode, right?
Yeah.
And if there's a particular designer who's very popular, you can get stuck in that. And it's nice to see a variety of textures and
absolutely, and ergonomically it just makes sense to play with all of that stuff. I mean, I always have I call it my purse knitting, but it's just a self-striping sock that I can just knit at the movies or whatever. You don't have to watch your hands to do it. But then I'll have a piece like I'll mention this designer too, Alistair Post-Quinn, who's brilliant mind.
Yes.
The things that Alistair does with double knitting are they just defy reason. I mean, he's astounding. I could never knit that in the dark. I have a hard time knitting that in the light.
I'm amazed that people can knit without looking. I understand it's the thing, and like you see the cool kids doing it, but I haven't quite got there yet.
You will, but it's not to say you can never look at your hands. You just look down when you need to look down.
So it's done by. I assume it's just done by feel, that you can feel.
Do you know how you learn to do it?
How?
You swatch.
Oh my. You crazy swatchers,
you swatch. you do a swatch where you don't watch your hands, and you start with a garter stitch swatch, and then you progress to stockinette, and then to seed, and then to whatever. I have a whole group of exercises up in my book called Knitting Comfortably, and they're called Swatchertunities.
Oh,
I know. Little wordplay, right?
Crazy kids these days, and their swatches and stuff.
They know Diana Ross these days.
Now, seriously, we need to start thinking about some other songs as well. Like, if you are a death metal fan, and I bought that punk knits, and a really fun book called Dominatrix as well, written. I don't know whether she is actually a dominatrix, but I think that would be kind of cool, an S&M scene with a dominatrix sitting in the corner while you're screaming and yelling, and she's just
sitting there knitting.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, very Marquet de Sade. So.
I like that. Yeah.
Marquet de Knit de Sade.
There you go. You could practice it at Folsom this weekend.
Leather knitting. I've not seen anybody knit leather thong.
I have seen knitted leather.
Really?
It's very cool.
Woven leather I love.
Woven leather is beautiful too. It's not vegan at all.
No, not vegan. You can eat as much carrots as you like. Ain't gonna be vegan.
No.
The cow has to die.
It's true. Yeah, not like a sheep that can grow another fleece.
No, it's true. It's true. And I think anyway.
But it's very cool that we can do. We can knit it or weave it or whatever the fibers are, and then you can have all those different textures and those different fibers in a piece. A leather piece with maybe a lace bodice or something like that.
Or to add in that, even really simple. I remember doing a blanket for a bed, and at the bind off they just bound in a string of leather, which is quite nice because it stops the fabric from being pulled. And it looks kind of cool as well.
Yeah,
nice. Okay, I think we've covered a lot. Is there something that I haven't mentioned that you think
I like to know what you like to knit.
Ooh.
I'd like to know what your favorite fibers are.
Okay, it's interesting. I'm caught at the minute that I remember I was in Amsterdam, so I was at Penelope and Stephen, right? And they had a knitting circle, and I thought, this was really kind of early days, because I've only been knitting for about 6 months now, right? So I'm in Amsterdam,
What an overachiever you are.
I'm a bit nerdy. So anyway, we're there and and the dude beside me, and there was a dude beside me, which was great, really cute. I think he was Colombian. He works in the store, so...
Really?
Yeah, he's really...
Should I go to Amsterdam?
Absolutely. It's totally worth the trip. There's some really great food, and
Nancy's there.
Nancy is there. Nancy was sitting opposite me. Steve West was sitting next to Nancy. I was I am in the nitterati of...
Isn't that cool?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's funny, there was a photo on the Imaginit's website of this masked mystery man, and they're going, you'll never know who this is. And I look at the shoes and I can see the stitch markers in the shoes. I go, that's totally Stephen West.
Of course it is.
I've seen those.
Hello, he's wearing a mask. Who else could it be?
There's not many other knitters on the witness protection program.
Right.
So anyway, I had bought all of this economic acrylic yarn to build this huge blanket. And so the dude beside me is going, he grabs the blanket and touches it and goes, oh, it's so soft, and what is this? And I said, oh, it's just acrylic. And I'm sort of like, and I've been in stores that are very snobby. I've had somebody say, I will not stock acrylic. And I was kind of like, well, I wasn't embarrassed or anything like that. It was like, well, that's what they had in the store, and that's what I needed, and it was all good. It's still lovely and soft. Sure. But at the moment, I'm knitting a pair of shorts, and I'm really caught because I want them to not be super heavy if they were to get wet. And finding a yarn that you can use for a knitted fabric that's going to get wet is not easy.
Well, acrylic, right? And you want something that, especially if it's going to be shorts, that you can toss in the washer.
Exactly.
I mean, there's a place for it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not going to make a baby's sweater out of cashmere.
Yeah, oh god, imagine getting vomit out of cashmere.
No.
I'm sure it's happened in some of the most lovely of places.
I'm sure it has too.
Yeah.
Not on my knits.
Hollywood, like there's a Hollywood actress with vomit in her. Oh.
That's sad. You're going to a dark place, George.
I know, Hollywood is very dark. But anyway. So yeah, there's that. What do I like knitting? I like a smoother kind of... I find that if I'm dealing with a fibre that's a bit too rough, my fingers get a little bit worn. And I think it's mainly because I haven't got my calluses up yet, but...
You don't need calluses. I want to watch you knit. Yeah.
I should have brought my knitting.
I know. What about, you mentioned you were thinking about jumping into some Fair Isle.
Yes. Fair Isle is... I love colour, right? And like... If I had to choose between texture and colour at the moment, it's all about colour. So I'm excited. I've got both fingers carrying yarn now, so that's exciting, and I think it looks pretty cool when you go. If I could have one extra thing going over my ear, then
there you go.
3 yarns at one.
You can put more than one in a hand.
I'll stop it.
You can do 4, 2 on each side.
Oh my god, that's just crazy talk. 4 colours. 4 colours. This is why this man is a professional knitter. People, don't try this at home.
Oh, do try this at home.
Until you've read this book.
Do try it at home, but swatch it before you make it.
And get all the swearing into the swatch.
Yes.
Swatch and swear. And then when you've mastered that, then you can go and knit your happy jumper. Happy jumpers.
Happy jumpers.
Yeah, so I think I've done my first stranded knitting, which I kind of liked, and the idea of intarsia, but I like the ideas of mixing mixed messages, so you'll have like a beautiful lace piece that might have rude words in it, or or faggotry or something. I was going to do a cushion that was in like the rainbow colours with faggot hidden away in pearl stitch or something.
Oh,
like that.
You could do shadow knitting.
Yes.
Like shadow knitting.
Yeah,
that would be
just
fun.
Crazy stuff like that. So yeah, for me at the moment, but I also like the idea of, I'm enjoying the whole colours and just finding a couple of patterns, like a really nice like a polo shirt.
Yeah.
That's a really hard pattern to find.
It's hard to find good designs for men. It's because of the curse of the boyfriend sweater.
Yeah.
You know about that, right?
Is that a book or a...
No, it's a thing. It's a it's a knitting tradition.
That you knit when you
knit a sweater for your boyfriend, the relationship ends. So that I blame that on the reason that there aren't a lot of good patterns for men, but there are certainly great male designers who are doing great design work for men. You mentioned Bruce, and you know, there are lots of them. Josh, Bennett, and Nathan, and lots of Stephen West does a lot for guys. And we're out there, but you're looking for something a little bit more conservative, I think. I
think conservative that you can add flavour to, which is kind of fun. And because I like the idea of having something that I made on me when I'm working and stuff. So I've made a wall hanging that's a mauled pride flag that's going to be on my wall at work. So it's subtle, but those who see it, and those who don't. And I kind of like that. And it's weird, like on my watch, I've got the gay pride flag, and every now and then somebody at work will see it, and I've forgotten about it, and then suddenly there's that connection with the patient, and they feel that, oh, I'm with somebody that's I can be safe with. And I've had a lot of lesbian patients come out to me that way over something really quite simple. So
it's nice. But
I like the idea of having beautiful art and stuff like that around me.
Yeah.
Because I think that's
I'd like to see your flag. Send me a picture.
I will. Yes, absolutely. A photo of the room and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's kind of the stuff that I'm doing at the moment. Currently on the needles, I have I am doing Nathan Taylor's double knitted, what's it called? Oh gosh. It's a double knitted scarf, but it's got increases and decreases in it as well, so it sort of sways.
Undulations, kind of.
Yeah, it looks really nice, and it has forced me to get a good understanding of the shape of you know, when you bring two stitches together. How have I made it so that this stitch sits on top of that stitch and they're facing the same way?
Yeah.
Knit nerdism.
We have to know that. I think there's a level of nerdism that we are responsible for.
And I'll look at a fabric now that I've done, months ago, and I'll look at it going, those, they're not balanced. That one's going that way, and that one's going that way, and they should be going that way, and which is good to learn. And it means that, and there's a blog posting, and I'll put a link to this, that it's a series of 3 posts that teaches you how to read your knitting. So then you don't have to count rows and stuff like that, because you can just go, oh, okay, there was an increase there, and 1, 2, 3, 4 rows above that.
Yep.
So it's a big chunk.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
It's a big truck going up a big hill.
Yes, and we are in the hills of San Francisco.
It's very, very hilly in San Francisco. We're at the highest point.
Wow, we're in the Twin Peaks, so I'm going to go have some cherry pie and...
Wrong Twin Peaks.
Drag a log or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I have no idea. I haven't seen the show.
You've never seen Twin Peaks?
No.
Oh my god.
I think Twin Peaks was on the same time as Prisoner in Australia, so I would choose Prisoner. Yeah, America, Australia.
Yeah.
That's a thing. Thank you so much, Carson.
Thank you.
It has been amazing, and I really appreciate your time. And you took a risk that this crazy-ass Australian dude just said, hey, can we make a video? And you're like, okay. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you for doing that.
I love Australia.
Yay, Australia's great.
It's
Please
great.
Come to Australia.
Oh my gosh, don't ask me twice. I can't wait to go to Australia. One of these days I'll actually get there.
And that'd be great. And I know that absolutely we can turn this into a tax deductible thing for you, because you can help Australians with their knitting ergonomics as well, which I think would be good. So.
I'd be thrilled.
Excellent. So don't forget ergoiknit.com if you want to learn more about Carson, and thank you for coming along.
Thanks for having me.
Yay!
Happy knitting.
Happy knitting.